want to start by thanking everyone for coming, and I really appreciate the invitation. The gentleman that you saw come in just a moment ago, that's my nephew, and so there is still another Tebbs on campus. So didn't get rid of the Tebbs. And also I was so happy when Tammy sent me the email to invite me, because I knew that this would be right around finals time. And, I have 2 classes right now that I think all the students are just sweating bullets, and so for me it was really convenient just to get out of town. And so what I want to do today is just give you kind of a chronology of my life, really since when I first came onto campus in '91, and then, as Russ said, I left after my master's in '97. So I want to talk about what I've been doing since then, and then relate successes and things that I've had back to my experience here at Iowa. So here's kind of an outline, and this is somewhat, it's kind of a description of my ambulant career. And my undergraduate days, so I arrived here at fall '91. I couldn't decide on a major. It was really interesting to hear Doug Wolf's talk yesterday. I'd never met Doug before, although I certainly know his book. We have a lot of similarities. Doug is from Donaldson, and I grew up just outside of Denmark, which is also in the southeast corner of the state. We both had high school advisors, apparently, who decided that if they had a student that was good in math, that they should be an engineer. And so I got the advice to go either to Iowa State or Iowa. I actually was going to go to Iowa State first. I got accepted there first. And the Iowa letter came later, and when I decided, it basically came down to my love of Iowa football, which basically brought me here, which is for the wrong reason probably, that I've made a lot of decisions in my life really for the wrong reason. So I thought I'd come here and study chemistry or engineering or maybe a combination of both. I didn't really like that. I was marching at the time, and I played in the marching band as a percussionist, and I also played in the symphony band and the orchestra. And so I thought, well, I'm spending 40 hours a week marching and rehearsing. Maybe I'll just make a career out of this. And but I decided against that too. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll do math education. I like teaching. I always like tutoring and helping students. And so I thought, well, I'll do math and education. But I guess maybe that didn't really pique my interest either. So then I thought about perhaps doing actual science. I'd heard a lot about it, taking courses in calculus and whatnot. But I eventually settled on math, settled in quotes. It all came back to kind of what I liked the most, and mathematics was always, that was always the courses that I enjoyed the most. I added stat as a second major soon after. I would have never guessed that to be the case after my first course in statistics. It was 22S120, which for those of you that don't know is kind of an amalgam of probability and statistics kind of all crunched down in one 4-hour course. My teacher was Martin Appel, and for those of you that don't know Martin, he was a probabilist from Carnegie Mellon, and I was a immature sophomore and probably not able to handle the high-level course that Martin gave. In fact, I remember John actually substituted a couple times for Martin. And I remember walking up, and in those days, 22S20, they had common final exams, and John was teaching another section of 120. And I walked up to John, actually, and I said, and I had Martin's exam, and I said, can you do this? So after the first course, I thought, what the hell was that? And we used Hogan Tanis, and I remember thinking, I don't really understand. I didn't really understand anything we just did, but I kind of liked it actually. So I took the 153, 154 sequence out of Hogan Craig, which is kind of a bump up. John Pryor taught the 153 course, And it was in John's class that I had my eureka moment. I was sitting in, we were over in McLean, it was 218 McLean, I know exactly where it was, I was sitting in the back row. And John had just started chapter 4 of Pope and Pray. And it was the chapter that, in that edition, had started talking about sampling distributions. And I remember being amazed that statistics had their own distributions. So that's probably something I should have learned in Mark's class, but I didn't. And I remember thinking, God, this is great, that these have their own distributions, and then we can think about, describing probabilistically the distributions of statistics. And so John's class was really influential in me kind of deciding what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And then, of course, it didn't go downhill with Dick's 154 course that came right after that. And so that was just a wonderful course. And so I really attribute a lot of, a lot of my success and a lot of me being pushed towards statistics to both John and Dick. And so at that time I was a junior, and I thought, well, I want to take basically all the statistics courses I could take. John gave me some good advice. He said, don't try to take as much statistics as you can. Try to take as much mathematics as you can. And that's what I did. And so, but I ended up picking up statistics as a second major. At that time, there were only 7 of us in statistics. I know that in recent years, not only at Iowa but elsewhere, the number of undergraduate majors has grown. I decided to do an honors project, and I didn't want to do it in math, so I decided to do it in statistics. And I think that at the time I was told that no one had ever done that before. And so, if you read the pamphlets on honors projects stratified by the different departments, there was some outlandish requirement that you had to take a 200 level course or something, which is Ph.D. level course and so I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. So I remember approaching John and talking to him maybe about TAing for Quant 2. And so he agreed to that. And that was really a great experience for me. I was able to, as a college senior, I was able to TA a section of Quant 2 along with the graduate students. And I ended up graduating in May of 1995. And that led me to my next chapter, my master's days. This is the academic stuff. So I started a master's program. Once again, I had applied to Iowa State and gotten a citizenship, and I was going to go there. And so Russ finally admitted me. I think there was some bribery involved, maybe. But, so anyway, I saw this admitting me the biggest mistake ever. That's kind of a joke between Russ and I, because I saw Russ either last year or the year before at JSM, and I was just coming off a stint as graduate director, and I kind of wanted to pick his brain. And I talked about, as graduate directors, how often do we make type 1 and type 2 errors? So I just kind of humorously queried, was I maybe one of your biggest type 2 errors? And he never answered. So anyway, whatever. So probably one of the best sequences of courses that I took was from Joe Lang, the Casella-Berger sequence. I still use his course notes, by the way. For those of you, I'm sure everyone knows, Joe is such an amazing lecturer, and as Noel was saying, he's always smiling, and his enthusiasm is infectious. And he gave us a great set of course notes that basically covers all of Casella-Berger. And I still use those notes because I teach out of Casella-Berger now. And so I have all of Joe's notes in these binders. And in preparing my course notes, I oftentimes think, God, how did Joe do that? And it's funny because Joe's presentation was so sharp. Man, it was at a high level. And oftentimes I'll sit there at my desk at home and think, what the hell is Joe doing? Although I don't say hell, and sometimes I don't say Joe. But it was just wonderful. Joe, thank you for such a great sequence. Another sequence that really had a big influence on my life was probability theory. I took that as a master's student, and they were elective courses. I guess that they fulfilled the hours requirement. But I didn't really need those courses. I kind of had run out of courses to take in statistics because I had taken most of the equivalents as an undergraduate. And so I took, so I thought, okay, probability theory, how hard can this be? I know PDFs and all that stuff. And so anyway, so I thought this is not going to be that hard, and I was wrong. And but I did get to, I did get the opportunity to have a class with Tim, and it was the hardest elective courses I ever took. Interesting, that course started with 10 students. That class started with 10 students. I'm not sure why so many dropped, but I remember that sequence was offered every other year. And I remember I had vague recollections that maybe the course was going to be taught again the next year and that the cycle was going to break or something. Anyway, so whatever the reason, there was just this mass exodus of students that dropped the class. And so it started with 10, and by the time the third or fourth week came around, there was two of us. And there was two of us. I can't remember who it was, but she was basically, she was here and I was here. And but I told Tim, I said, I've got to stay in the class because I need to graduate. But anyway, it was really heartwarming to hear Noelle's account of Tim, and that's also a similar experience that I had. Tim never advised me on research. But he gave me really great advice about life. So that really had a positive impact on me. So he also introduced me to order restricted inference in 22 S204. He was in the chapter that we were talking about, conditional expectations and martingales. He came in one day and started talking about conditional expectations given signal lattices, and gave a little 2 or 3 day seminar on order restricted inference. So I struggled to get through both of those courses. I graduated in May 1997. I did have fun as a master's student. My roommates were Swedish tennis players. I'm still really good friends with them today. I used to hit with them over at the field house. And our office was in Seashore Hall. The rumor was that our office was an old morgue. I don't know if that's really true, but there would be big drains in the basement of Seashore Hall, and so one could only surmise what those were for. I spent the best thing about being in Seashore Hall is that Joe's bar was 2 minutes away, and the airliner was 3 minutes away, and so I spent a lot of time at the airline. And I also played in the city of Iowa City Basketball League. The graduate students from statistics and actuarial science formed a team. Our team name was the Rejection Region Legion. And our logo was the normal density or some other symmetric PDF with the tails kind of shaded in. Jeff Isaacson, he was on the team. He was a real tall guy. I think Jeff and Dan played basketball together at Wartburg. Chris Carlin, Nick Craig, he was an actuary. Me and John Costello, I think he had to leave, but we had a really good group, and we did well. We finished second place out of 16. We won because we had a novel game plan for each game. Our game plan was just to throw the ball to Jeff. And he would basically just live down low. We could get the ball to him, and no one could stop him. And but I met with Dale the beginning of my second year. He suggested NC State, and so I think I looked at NC State and Wisconsin and Florida, and I think maybe A&M. And so I accepted at NC State, and I took my dad's pickup, and I drove to Raleigh. Right after I got there, Sastry Pantula, who was the graduate director at the time, he advised me to take Ph.D. courses right away, so I did. I actually got into research my second year after passing all the exams. My advisor was Bill Swallow, who was a student at Shell Searle. Bill is best known for his work in linear models, linear mixed models. And Bill had also got into an area called group testing, which is basically an area that looks at combining individual, say, blood specimens or pooling organisms, and so for cost-effective purposes, to think of the blood sampling problem, where you basically take multiple blood samples and pool them together and then assay the pool. And so statistically, you can think of that as a deconvolution problem. So you've got information on pools or maximums of random variables, and you want to make inference for at the individual level, so to speak. And so I proposed that I kind of had gotten interested in order restricted inference, and then I kind of combined that with group testing, and that turned out to be a really neat combination. United Technologies visited early spring 2000, and they came to give a seminar about their company, and I got in my mind that I wanted to go work in industry. So I remember Bill saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" That was the edited version of what he said. And so I accepted the job and left. And so I bought a new Jeep and left for Hartford, Connecticut. I spent 1 year at United Technologies, so you can see it didn't last very long, but I really enjoyed what I did there. I did a lot of reliability. I worked almost exclusively for Pratt & Whitney. So I did a lot of designing experiments, reliability. A couple months in, the educational group at UT got a hold of me, and they wanted me to basically teach full-time for them. Anyway, so I went okay, but I didn't really like where things were going. So I emailed my advisor, Bill Swallow, and I basically said he was right. And so I applied to 67 schools. I asked Bill and Sastry and Dick Dykstra to write me letters. Thank you, Dick, for writing 67 letters. And I eventually accepted a job at Oklahoma State, packed my Jeep, everything I could, and I drove to Stillwater. I got there 3 months early. I was so excited to get there. I took a $30,000 pay cut to go from industry to academics. And I didn't have any money. And so I borrowed some money from my dad to get through. And but I remember I would get to the office every day early. And even during the summer when I wasn't getting paid. And later on, when I started getting paid, I thought, God, I can't believe they paid me to do this. And so I met my colleague Chris Builder, who also works in categorical data. Some interesting parallel. He was working on the sort of the modeling independence with modeling categorical variables that have multiple choices for the response. And that actually has some, from a kind of a missing data point of view, it has some interesting parallels with group testing. And so our research interests click, and we still work together today. The financial situation in Oklahoma wasn't very good, so I actually decided to kind of look elsewhere. So I looked north to Kansas State. I took Kamu's job. I took Kamu's office. I had 2 great years there, but also I kind of wanted to get to a little bit bigger city. And so after spending 2 years at Kansas State, I left for South Carolina in 2005. So my time at South Carolina has been really fruitful. So I have progressed up the proverbial ranks, so to speak. So now I'm a full professor. I've really taken on quite a little bit of everything. I was undergraduate director. I really like that. Really like working with undergraduates. And so when I started as undergraduate director, there had been rumors that they were going to shut our program down because we had so many majors. And so one of the things that I did was immediately try to beef up the numbers, and so we could increase the number of undergraduates. And then I had some success doing that, so I was promoted to graduate director. And by promoted, I mean demoted. And that was really hard. I thought that was hard. And so, those are some of the things that Russ and I talked about at JSM. And but I did that for a few years. I really, that was interesting. And then for the last 3 years, I've been on the University Tenure Promotions Committee, which is the committee that oversees, or that makes recommendations to the president for all tenure promotion cases for the whole university. And that's been a lot of fun. This year, I'm actually chairing the committee, and it's almost over. And so I really enjoyed that appointment, and but I'll be glad. So these gray hairs have come in the last few years. Graduate director and UCTP. So last year I was very honored to get some awards. I was elected a fellow in the American Statistical Association. And so I was really happy that my citation mentioned something about order-restricted inference. I think that some of these, the contributions that were being referred to were some of my dissertation work, and then some order-restricted work that I did with Chris Carlin, and then later. So it's interesting that my citation kind of for this kind of dates back to my Iowa days. I also was fortunate enough to get the ASA Outstanding Statistical Application Award last year. That was for a paper that dealt with group testing for multiple infections motivated by chlamydia gonorrhea screening that's done all over the U.S. But the data that were used and the main collaborators that I worked with are at the Iowa State Public Health Lab. And so that was kind of also another interesting connection that I have with the people here at Iowa. So what's next? My sabbatical starts in 21 days. Not that I'm counting. I am actually. It's 21 days. And so it's been my first one ever. I'm looking forward to getting back to research and mentoring grad students. I have three PhD students that hopefully will graduate next year. And so I thought I'd wrap the talk up by saying, alluding to what impact that being here at Iowa has had on my career. I think I would have to start with the professors, certainly John and Dick, but also Kumsik and Elias and Dale. They've really shaped the way that I think about. I mentioned Dale last. He owes me $5, by the way. You should ask him. You can ask him why. Anyway, so that they really shaped the way that I think about research and teaching. The great departmental staff. I don't have to tell you how wonderful Tammy is. Great friends, now colleagues, and so